It looked like a bloody end to Vladimir Putin's reign was hours away. As Yevgeny Prigozhin's 20,000 mercenaries marched on Moscow, the Russian armed forces seemed powerless to stop them. For hours on Saturday, it was not clear who, if anybody, was in charge of the country or its huge nuclear stockpile, as Wagner troops blew helicopters out of the sky and soldiers apparently refused orders to shoot back at them. But he was saved at the 11th hour, with Belarus leader Alexander Lukashenko claiming to have brokered a deal to save the Russian president's skin. Whether or not Lukashenko was the real power broker, for the first time, Putin looked impotent within the country that he has ruled with an iron fist for 20 years. Now, Putin will try to reassert his authority, and he must show these factions he is the strongest man in Russia, or else lose control completely. First and foremost, the loyalty of the army and the security of Russia's vast nuclear stockpile has been seriously called into question. For almost 24 hours, Prigozhin's men were able to advance on Moscow virtually unimpeded by Russian soldiers, despite shooting down up to 7 military aircraft. They easily seized control of Russia's southern military headquarters and Voronezh, where nuclear weapons are stockpiled, as troops seemingly defied Putin's orders to crush them. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and top general Valery Gerasimov were nowhere to be seen amidst the chaos, even as Prigozhin called for their heads, amid rumors that he demanded they be sacked as the price for ending his rebellion. If Putin leaves them in post, it risks sparking a second uprising. But they are both well connected within Russia's elite and command the loyalty of much of the military. Getting rid of them could spark an even larger revolt and may fatally undermine the war in Ukraine. And there is potential for more infighting among soldiers themselves, as whatever is left of Wagner is folded into Russia's ranks. That could spark revenge attacks for those killed during the uprising. Losing control of the army has been the death knell for almost every dictator in history, and losing control of Russia's nuclear weapons could spell disaster far beyond its borders, especially if they fall into the hands of a hardliner intent on using them. Though Prigozhin's rebellion has been quashed, Putin will still have to deal with him. The Wagner leader and his militants are moving just next door to Belarus, having escaped all punishment for their actions, at least for now. There, they will be restrained only by Alexander Lukashenko, a tin-pot dictator who is even weaker than Putin. That could give Prigozhin more free rein to make threats and to pull strings, safe in the knowledge that he can launch another attack with his mercenary army at any time. If Prigozhin really does escape unscathed, it will be one of the few times that someone has openly defied Putin and lived to tell the tale. In the strongman world of Russian politics, that risks looking desperately weak. Others may now start settling scores behind Putin's back, which could lead to a civil war, or else launch coups of their own. The despot has survived this round, but powerful men around him are likely beginning to imagine a Russia without him. As experts at the SIPA think tank put it, Prigozhin pulled back the curtain and revealed Oz the Great and Powerful to be nothing more than a scared old man. For decades, the Russian security services have been at Putin's beck and call. A former KGB agent himself, Putin has used its successor agency, the FSB, to bend Russia to his will, with agents acting as his personal assassins. Andrei Lugovoy and Dmitry Kovtun, the two men responsible for slipping radioactive polonium into Alexander Litvinenko's tea in 2006, were almost certainly working for the agency. And the FSB is also thought to be behind dozens of shootings and poisonings within Russia, including Alexei Navalny in 2020. Nikolai Patrushev, head of the agency when Litvinenko was killed, is often touted as one of the most likely men to replace Putin, along with his son, Dmitry. And Ukraine believes a gang of Russian elites plotted to poison Putin just last year and replace him with the current FSB boss, Alexander Bortnikov. Bortnikov was silent as Prigozhin advanced on Moscow on Saturday. If the Russian president is to have any chance of surviving now, he must keep all three men on side. But he recently fought with the FSB for giving him false intelligence on Ukraine and placed two of its senior figures under house arrest. Putin also sparred with the head of the SVR, Russia's foreign intelligence service, on the eve of the Ukraine war. Sergei Naryshkin was given a humiliating dressing down after fumbling his words on national TV, and may now come looking for payback. There is also the GRU, Russia's military intelligence, whose agents were behind the poisonings of Sergei and Yulia Skripal in Salisbury in 2018. General Vladimir Alexeyev, who was leading their efforts in Ukraine, has publicly backed Putin and denounced Prigozhin, but there is no telling what happens behind closed doors. Russia's oligarchs, the billionaires who effectively own the state, have long been the backbone of Putin's regime. In return for their support, he provides them with security and turns a blind eye as they siphon the nation's wealth into their own pockets. But the Ukraine war has hit them hard. Many have seen their yachts, mansions, and overseas bank accounts seized. Russia's economy has tanked, taking much of their business with it, and just last month, suicide drones crashed into the wealthy Moscow neighborhoods where they live. In short, Putin has broken his end of the deal, and there is little the Russian leader can do now to placate them. Western sanctions are unlikely to lift, even if he ends the war, while the Russian economy may take decades to recover. And they could be about to lose access to billions of dollars more in diamonds and gold that Wagner smuggles out of Africa. Prigozhin is no champion of the elites, referring to them in his rants as scum and suggesting they all be shot. So they will not follow him. But they could use the instability left in the wake of his insurrection to try and replace Putin. After all, it is thought to be the elites who put Putin into power in the first place. Putin has never truly relied on the support of Russian people for power, but history shows it is unwise to ignore them or their anger. Just ask Nicholas II, last of the Tsars, whose family was deposed and subsequently murdered in a series of violent uprisings in 1917, partly sparked over losses sustained in the First World War. Now hundreds of thousands of ordinary Russians are again being sent to their deaths in a war in Europe, and it seems those left behind are increasingly siding with Prigozhin. A former criminal who speaks as if he is from the streets, he has positioned himself as a champion of the people, in contrast with Russia's out-of-touch elites. He is one of the few who routinely visits the front line in Ukraine and has accused Russia's military of covering up the death toll, something that will resonate with hundreds of thousands of families. He is also friendly with the hardline and increasingly influential Russian war bloggers. Putin has spent decades crushing dissent within Russia, and the chances of a people's uprising to depose him appear remote. But Prigozhin was cheered as a hero when he left the captured city of Rostov on Sunday night. Crowds then attacked Russian police, who moved in to replace his Wagner fighters. If a popular revolt was going to start anywhere, then Prigozhin may be the man to lead it. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more videos like this on the ongoing war in Ukraine.